virtual yearbook with Gulfstream Park through the years here as we settle in. It's a 10-race Thursday afternoon. Looking out, live shot here at about 11:10 a.m. on this July the 23rd. Obviously kicking off a new racing week amid overcast skies, but we are on the turf for a good chunk of the card this afternoon. We did manage to lose a couple of turf races with the rainy weather that we've had, but it's all good here from the outside to our inside clubhouse studios. Jason Blewett, so good to have your company, everybody, as we transition back to more of a traditional summertime racing schedule, and that we're now running for the time being Thursday through Sunday. And with the new week, obviously comes a six-figure guarantee in the Jackpot Rainbow Six. And there are a bevy of two-year-old maiden turf races on the card, and who better to bring in than Ron Nicoletti? He's our resident green thumb expert here on the turf at Gulfstream Park. And Ronnie, the thing I like about today's card moving forward with the youngsters on the grass, we're going two turns now.
Yeah, we're going to go around two turns, as you mentioned, for the first time for these two-year-olds. It will be on the turf course, but you'll see that a lot now going forward with these two-year-olds, especially on the turf. And we'll see. Now comes the handicapping. Who likes that distance? Who doesn't? Who ran well at those abbreviated 5 furlong distances on the turf?
Well, with another week comes, of course, another Friday, which will be tomorrow. We're still probably, you and I felt it was kind of like a Wednesday, but it is actually a Thursday naturally, and we'll have another round of the Stronach 5. That is the point. Once again, an East Coast extravaganza beginning with race number 6 up at Laurel Park.
Yeah, we've been using this theory, these type of races over the last couple of weeks with, Golden Gate and Santa Anita closed. So we got our 8th and 9th races tomorrow afternoon, and Laurel 3 from Laurel. It kicks off about 3:23 p.m.
Now, as far as the Jackpot Rainbow Six, Ronnie, and switching gears, and we'll have a 9-race Friday card, by the way, tomorrow afternoon. We have got, that sounds pretty good, $750,000, my friend, in the race 5 starting point.
Yeah, it's amazing. We'll be up about $1 million very soon. So probably today it'll reach the total pool would be just about $1 million. So make sure you play. It's only 20 cents.
So when looking at the 2-year-old filly split divisions we have, because the first race will go on the turf in about 55 minutes time at 12:05 Eastern. You've got race number 1 and race number 3 against split divisions for the 2-year-old fillies, because both these races will go at a mile. There's obviously some guesswork to be had. Now, maybe there's a little more of a guessing game in the first, because there are, well, at least there's a couple of horses that have turf experience in the third that I think will run pretty well, stretching out in distance. But for me, going into this thing cold, I'm 1, 2, and 9. I will, after the show, text Safi and find out what the story is with the number 10 horse for him, Take Me As I Am, the Carpe Diem firster, who's a very early on 2-1 favorite. I didn't include her, but I wound up using 3 horses here, including Audrey on the rail. I've got the number 2 from our Cassie, Spanish Love Affair, and the other Cassie firster in Know How, bred over in Britain by that prolific stallion, No Nay Never. The second race confused me, if I'm being honest, Ronnie, and it was just a race, fairly compact field with a restricted $8,000 claimer. I opted just to single there with Varsovia, who's in off, I think, the best last-out effort.
Yeah, I actually have that horse on top, too. A good single, and I think that's a place where you need more coverage when you talk about these 2-year-olds going around 2 turns on the turf for the first time.
Yeah, definitely. It was just not a race or a sequence with that second race that I wanted to double the ticket. So if I'm right with Varsovia, maybe I could string together 4 other winners, 3 horses in the second division in the third race, and then I've got, a 2x3 wrapping things up. Now, races 4 and 8 move to the main track, given the rainy weather that we've had. So you do have an off-the-turf race in this early pick 5. And what you have, again, is a bit of a guessing game as far as we're concerned here at about 11:15 a.m. in the morning, looking at this cast of 2-year-old filly maiden special weight runners, and a field, naturally, Ronnie, dominated basically by first-time starters. What did you do in this race where obviously we do have the 2 well-bred Mark Cassie runners?
Well, we went the same exact way in here. I went with the 2 Spanish Love Affair on top as a half-sister to a Grade 1 winner called Spanish Queen, debuting for Mark with a string of solid workouts showing up both turf and dirt up at Palm Meadows. I pulled a stat that's good for both the 2 Spanish Love Affair and the number 9 Know How. Mark Cassie with his 2-year-old first-time starters, roots on the turf. He's 12% 37% in the money, but he's got that positive return of investment. So if you ever listen to Mark, he usually says he gives his horses one race. And, that's the way he sort of leans. But I just thought on the breeding here, I would put these two on top of my ticket.
And then you've got the Safi Firster again very early on taking some play. The Arundel homebred down inside, and Audrey, who might be ready to move forward here and might appreciate, in fact, being a flatter curling filly, obviously stretching out in distance. We'll see how they bet the race and maybe some more clues by the time we rejoin everybody at about 11:50, getting into that first race analysis and the afternoon prattle. Now, the second race, we'll jump over to the main track, my friend. We've got, again, a fairly cozy cast of 3-and-up filly and mare, 3 lifetime $8,000 claimers, and you had already teased it saying, Ronnie, you have the two like I do, Varsovia on top, when timing seems to be on her side, God bless you.
Yeah.
And, I mean, she runs a 50 buyer and can run back to that Daylight Maiden win she's off of. I mean, she might bury this field.
Yeah, she's stepping up to the next level and cutting back to 3/4 of a mile today after drawing clear to defeat those 6,252 lifetime claimers. That was going 6.5 furlongs. I just thought off that performance, she was the one to beat in there. She looks like she's just about favored in the doubles with a couple other horses in there, the 5 and the 4, who I used on my ticket, Adonai Bless and the number 4, Sizzling Roma. I was hoping to bounce back at this level. Sort of threw out a clunker last time out.
Now, the 2-year-old maiden turf-bound fillies in Thursday's third. This, to me, at least to my eye, again, going into this thing cold at 11:15 in the morning, this, to me, looks like it might be the stronger division and the stronger race. We'll see. You've got, again, the Tim Ham Exaggerator first, or the 5 Director's Cut, who ran well enough first time out at Tampa Bay Downs. In fact, as I talk about her, why don't we go back and take a look at her career debut? She's one of a couple of fillies in this race by a freshman stallion and former Preakness winner and Exaggerator. And not that she did a ton of running in this race up at Tampa on June the 10th, but she struck me as a horse in a very, very gapped out field. You'll see what I'm talking about as they round the bend and turn for home. I mean, this field was separated by a couple of football fields, but again, just the way she stayed on and was showing a little bit of interest down towards the inside. Again, not a ton of running, but she struck me as an Exaggerator Dynaformer filly who was probably going to just relish having this race under her belt and stretching out in distance after she was wired in that spot by Sister Aurora. We've also got, of course, the number 2, Sleek Lynx. She's the pedigree filly in the race, Ronnie. We'll check out her recent workout. In fact, this is 2 back for her. Her last turf work on the morning of July 9th. And she'll outwork this horse, Spanish Love Affair, who obviously is coming back in the first and making her debut at about 12:05.
Yeah, Sleek Lynx is a $335,000 daughter of Walt Park, debuting for Mark. So that stat we gave you in the first sort of holds true here. A really consistent morning work tab, as Jason is showing you right now. Hector Berrios, she's a regally bred freshman.
And look how, I mean, she's just getting under no urging whatsoever. She was getting the better up until they basically hit the bank of that turn. Easily the better of Spanish Love Affair, who's currently sitting up there at 5-1 in race number 1. So it's a busy hour and change here for trainer Mark Casse, running a total of 3 2-year-old filly firsters in races 1 and 3 combined. Again, she is the pedigree horse, the 2 Sleek Lynx. Who else you got in the mix? I see you got the number 8 Bold Article, who, speaking of being busy, Safi's got, again, very early on, the favorite outside. He's also running this filly by Constitution, who to my eyes didn't have a ton of turf pedigree, but it's still Safi here for our good friend Shooting Star Thoroughbreds.
Yeah, I've just been liking the way the progeny of Constitution have been running debuts for Safi with Marcos Meneses. Boy, he had a really good a couple of days. The barn has a positive return of investment of over, I think, about 250, 244 with horses debuting at a mile, probably more on the main track than on the turf. But I just do it. Bold Article. They like this horse, their horse in the first. We'll see how this horse plays out in the third race today. That is the number 8 Bold Article for Safi Joseph Jr.
Now we're off the turf for the 4th here. We'll go 5 on the dirt, a race out from that $750,000 guaranteed jackpot Rainbow Six. Some 2-year-old filly, $40,000 to $35,000 maiden claimers. And once this race came off, I think lining them up, this could be a really, really, really solid spot for the 5 Pretzel to just take a realistic and needed dip down to maiden 40. Now, she's obviously one of a couple of in the spot like this, marquee-looking horses, along with your top pick, the 7, Heart of God, who's coming out of a slow race but was wired in that spot by special inclusion.
Yes, stepping up after that promising $25,000 debut on the dirt, in which she rallied to finish second. She was beating the neck at the distance for Enrique Torres. Alberto Burgos going up. And, yeah, Pretzel looks like this one will be favored and drop it to the 40 level. Sort of that so-so campaign against Special Weight Company, but I think the move to the main track makes this horse look pretty sharp in there. And I used a Mermaid's Tier in between. It was the daughter of Two-Step Salsa, debuting for Ronnie Spatz. Solid workout. Miguel Vasquez in the saddle.
We'll take a little breather here on Gulfstream today. We're back with the Rainbow Six on the other side of this quick timeout.
And they're off. Second in the two path. Round by Hurt inside. Race. And a quarter of a mile to go, and he's 6 on top. Last of the 12 as they roll into the backstretch.
Slightly overcast here at Gulfstream Park in Hallandale Beach at about 20 after 11 on this Thursday, July the 23rd. Looks like we've got somewhat of a choppy infield lake, a nice breeze. In fact, when I tweeted out my on-track video at about 9:35, 9:40, there was a nice breeze coming in off the ocean. And it's funny, Ronnie, although the sun obviously isn't out in full force, this time of the year we'll take it. It's about 10 degrees cooler than it might be normally. Should be a pretty pleasant day for everybody that's got to spend it outside. Of course, there are so many people that work outside here and help us do what we do and keep the show going each and every day.
Including me out here. Sometimes it can get awful hot. It's very comfortable this afternoon once that sun goes down. So the 5th race, has the Rainbow Six, but we got a lot of action coming in on this weekend. Actually Saturday, a couple of stakes.
Yeah, a couple of stakes with some big time and I think well-known familiar firepower, mainly looking at, I think, the 2 stars going in. Ladies Islands in the dirt race, the Anna T. Then you've got Galleon Mast in the turf race, the turf stake, that is, for David Fox. And I thought it was a good spot for both of those horses.
Yeah, I mean, the turf race, of course, one of the greatest horses to ever run in
the Meckie, right?
The
yeah.
Meckie. You gotta mention the Meckie. We always have a lot of fun. That was one incredible horse, but Galleon Mast looks tough in there. And so, as you mentioned, the filly looks awful tough in that spot.
Ladies Island is going to be a massive favorite. Cutting back to just a real formidable distance for her. She got the 7 last time out, but I think her bread is really buttered, say, from 5.5 to 6 on the dirt. That'll be Saturday, of course. Now, the here and now is that 750 large jackpot guarantee in the Rainbow Six. You're going to take a little stab here at the ticket, my friend, and how does it look?
No singles today, $43.20. Went 3 deep in race number 5 with perfect combination, Cents a Million and True Atka. I thought those were the logical 3 in there. 6th race, remember, is on the turf. The 8th is not. So the 6th race, I went with Machiavelli, Mystical Moon, and Dylan Rocks. 2 deep in race number 7. I really like Beyond Gone. Like this horse a little bit better before the scratch. With a bit of luck, I saw a lot of speed in that race. So I like that horse. Actually made it my best bet, but I also used Plato on the ticket. That 8th race off the turf, wide open affair. I just used Yako and Colonel's Daughter. If you got a single somewhere, you got to go deeper in that race. 3 deep in race number 9. Only a 5-horse field. I couldn't figure it out. Lindsay's Lucky Lady, Reluctant Bride, both coming off layoffs. Addie Lynn gets the What Have You Done Lately angle, and 2 deep in race number 10. I think I got the logical 2 with Sensazone and Escribiano, the 8 and the 7.
Can you say those horses again? You know what? Let's wait till we get up to the 10th. All right?
I think I got them right.
I think it's Senzione. And I'm usually the last person for pronunciations. The other horse I'm not even going to take a stab at because I'll screw it up for sure. But that was a good job by you there.
Yeah.
Now, let's get through this 5th race, my friend, as we're on the dirt chasing today's Rainbow Six. And, boy, I really, like you, thought this race would basically distill down into the inside posted horses, mainly, of course, led by the 3 Cents a Million, who got the good figure last time out and has been pretty sharp for Kent Sweezy. And speaking of good form and just coming into this thing in good shape, the One Perfect Combination has speed, and that horse's last win was pretty solid.
Yeah, stepping up to face the winners after drawing clear, as you mentioned, to defeat those 10 maidens. Won that race by almost 7 lengths for trainer Paul Kopach. He's got the apprentice Joe Trejos in the saddle again. Cents a Million, too, for what you were saying. Been knocking on the door in both local races since defeating those 16,000 maidens up at Tampa. Trainer Kent Sweezy is going to go with Angel Rodriguez. I thought these were the logical, too. After that, I used the 5 True Atka, who's trying the 2 lifetime claimers, shipped down from Tampa, proved no match for those state-bred optional claimers. But that race was pretty swift for those type of horses. Was timed in like 1:10-2 for the 6 furlongs. Went pretty fast, that race. I think this is a much easier spot.
Now, the 6th race, as we chase our late pick 5, and we are on the turf for this one, pretty competitive 3 lifetime 12-5 claimer. It's a race that sees me using 3 horses. I am anti the big rematch from June 28th. There are 7 horses, including Mystical Moon, the 3, who's probably going to be the shortest price in that 7-horse rematching crew, rematching out of that race June 28th. I do not like that field whatsoever. So I'm going to go 1-2-7 in this spot, using a couple of drop downs along with the 2 Dylan Rocks, who's off the claim and should get a good trip for J.C. Avila. Got another 3-horse spread in the 7th. It looked like, to me anyway, most of the firepower was down toward the inside. And pretty interesting race, because a number of those horses are coming in off career tops and seem to be coming into this race as well off pretty convincing victories. Using, can you tell the 8th isn't off the turf? I've got the 16, Nowitna River, and the 9-horse. Speaking of the Avila barn, they've got the number 9, Colonel's Daughter, whose win on the dirt 2 back at Tampa, relatively speaking, was a fair effort. A very tricky 9th race. For a 5-horse field, that is a very difficult puzzle. I like the horses that have been running recently. Ronnie likes to lay off horses. I'm in the completely opposite camp. We'll talk more about that race in a second. And, man, I don't think Amador Sanchez, this is a trainer change, not a private purchase, with Senzeoni in the nightcap. I don't think, Ronnie, he may get beat today, but I don't think you could draw up a better race for that gelding to dip in for 16,000 on the turf this time of year.
No, he's faced considerably tougher in its previous races, so I thought that was the one to beat. But I also used the 7 in there just for a saver. But that's where, if you think that horse can win that 8th race, you go a little bit deeper. Of course, it's just a wide open affair with the move to the main track this afternoon.
Almost had this upcoming Thursday 6th into different tiers. When I kind of drew up the schematics in my mind and put pen to tablet here, first and foremost, I like Machiavelli, who just didn't fire last time out against Super Courage, but is down in class for the 12-5. He will be coming out of the same race along with the 7, Crypto Gold, and you like him as well, Ronnie. He just looks like a spot, and he's got to go out there and run and all that, but boy, for 12-5, he could run 2, 3, 4 back, something akin to those races. He's going to be a handful this afternoon.
Well, he's got his claimant tag sliced in half, turns back to the mile after following that well-meant second-place finish. That was a couple of starts back against the 20 claimers, 2 starts back. Really a non-trying 10th last time out against those 3 lifetime claimers at the 25 level. Mark Cassie, MSCL Jaramillo handling the combo, drop down, turn back in distance. I thought this was the logical one in there, but as you saw with my ticket, I also used Dylan Rocks and Mystical Moon.
Now, Dylan Rocks is off the claim, was claimed off Sabelli here 62 days ago, is coming back for Avila in this spot. Should get a good trip. We'll see if it can keep that good string of recent races going. So Jane, not an easy person to claim off of, but you do have a barn here. Is very good, obviously, in J.C. Avila, who's having a solid summer as well. Then we've got maybe one of the bulkiest rematches we've had in any particular race here this spring and summer, where you've got 7 horses, including the 2nd through 5th finishers, coming out of a race we will bring you back from June 28th. As I noted with my late pick 5, I win, lose, or draw. I just don't like this race. It was won by Cappy Hour, who's about to take the lead and paid well over $50 to win. And in looking at the Gray Mason song and the 12 Mystical Moon, and even the Crichton horse, Unlimited Data, who starts to clunk up and hits the super and finishes in the super high 5, I had pulled this race, not wanting to be too hard on these horses. I watched that race a couple of times, Ronnie. You could get a little bit of a display there. I just don't think anybody did any running, any serious running, maybe outside of Cappy Hour in that race, and he paid almost $60.
Well, you know, when you handicap for the try, a horse like Mystical Moon, who's close to finish second or third in 5 consecutive races against this level of competition, cuts back to the mile. He finished second. He was the tepid favorite going 8.5 furlongs last time out. I just think he's right there all the time. He just doesn't win, so I threw him on the ticket like you did a little further down.
Now, the 7th will turn the page. Will volley back onto the main track. And although, again, you've got, 6 horses after the early scratch of the number 7 with a bit of luck, there's a lot to be said, mainly in my opinion, with the 4 inside posted horses, where the One Beyond Gone has been pretty sharp of late for Ken McPeak, and no reason to think he's just not simply a pretty obvious contender in this race. In fact, a big player, so much so you picked him as your top selection.
Yeah, he's dropping a notch and stretching out to 7 furlongs, looking to sit. I saw some speed in this race behind what looks like a good pace scenario. As I mentioned, the scratch with a little bit of luck. There's a little bit of the speed in this race. He looks like he's going to sit a nice trip going to 7/8 of a mile this afternoon. The only concern is the inside post. So I just thought Beyond Gone was a good selection in here.
Plato Next Door is an interesting horse, and I've always, even when Stanley Gold had him for Arundel and then he bounced over to Juan Alvarado, I've always kind of liked this colt by Brethren. To me, he's a contender, but he's also a tricky read because he had everything his own way last time out in a race he was basically given away for 12-5, had a very easy trip as the 9-5 favorite. Will he have a bit of a glass jaw stepping back up and trying better horses today?
Well, the barn that claimed has really been sharp this past year with First Off the Claim. I'm talking about Jose D'Angelo. Looks like the D'Angelos have figured out how to claim horses here in South Florida and succeed. First after the claim on the dirt, he's 8 for 20, 40%. 80% in the money and a $2 return of investment. So the barn over the past year has really done well jumping in, grabbing horses. But you're right, going to get the class check this afternoon. I didn't use the 3 horse that you have on top, Avant Garde.
It just seems like he has stepped up his game exponentially. I think the version of Avant Garde we're dealing with now is better, or I'm going to venture a guess and speculate and hypothesize he is a better horse than he was certainly on the turf. And the dirt in his last couple has just brought out his best, and he got a good figure last time out. I'm going to buy in. Although he is stepping up much like Plato, he's a different-looking horse, of course, but on paper. But got a good number and buried a field last time out on the dirt. I'm gonna buy into him as he steps up. And I think the 4, Macho Doro, he's been pretty good of late and is coming out of a big figure victory going 7. It just seems, Ronnie, most of these horses, mainly from Plato to my horse to Macho Doro, all 3 of them, one from here to GPW with some gaudy speed figures, and they're all on a collision course. It makes that race, I think, pretty interesting.
Yeah, and that's why I sort of went with the horse in there that I thought would sit the trip, because a lot of those horses, I don't know which one's going to go up and try and do exactly what they did. So if all 3 go up and do what they did last time out, maybe it sets up for the One Beyond Gone. That was my thought process, at least, when I handicapped for that race.
Second and final off the turf will go in race number 8. We will battle here a mile on the dirt with these 3-and-up filly mare 12-5 claimers. The body of the field, to me, the best-looking horse happened to be the 9 Colonel's Daughter. You've got the MTO, the 16 Nowitna River, whose form since coming to Florida has been solid enough that she is just a major player and does make a lot of sense. You wound up going to the number 3 Yako in this spot. Oh, I don't know. For me, her dirt races are nowhere near as good as her turf races, and I don't know. What do you like about her in this race?
Excuse me. I just thought her last race was so game. She fought throughout in that race. She finished second. Now, that was going a mile in the 16th on turf last out, but she cuts back to the mile today, looking for her first ever win on the dirt. She's had 3 second-place finishes from 5 starters. Antonio Sano, the barn has been going good. Miguel Vasquez is going good. No one in this race scares me. I thought if Jaco can translate, I thought this horse, Ultra Game, I had this horse on top for the turf today. So I just thought this horse, maybe with that gutty performance last time out, can translate that to the main track. So that was what I thought.
All right, we'll see. Yeah, no, her races 3 and 4 back, I thought were a little lackluster on the dirt. We'll see if you're right there in the 7th race this afternoon, or race number 8. Now, moving on to the feature, again, this race conflates. You got a couple of different camps. Horses with good recent form, like the one Addie Lynn. My top pick, the 2 Sweet Mia, who I think for me, and Kathleen O'Connell is sending out a total of 4 horses in the late double. She's got 2 horses down towards the inside in the 10th. She's also running Sweet Mia and Lindsay's Lucky Lady in this race. And I think less is more with Sweet Mia. I just don't think she's a horse 3-back, although she ran well in that race behind Shug's horse in Finding Fame. Miles a tad too far, and I think 7 might be pushing it as well. So I like her with some recency, along with the number 1, Addie Lynn, who was 3rd and never really seriously factored in her most recent start, but it's hard to argue at this time of the year when you're finishing 3rd, beaten less than 4 lengths or so by the likes of Up in Smoke and Birdie, Ronnie, in this race in the game face.
Yeah, I mean, you got the game face, as you mentioned, Up in Smoke and Bernie in that race. A good performance. And Addie Lynn, this is where I had the trouble. I must have put Addie Lynn on the top of my ticket about 4 times when I was handicapping this race. I just went a different way, just thinking that maybe Lindsay's Lucky Lady, who is impressive winning both the Golden Isles, Desert Vixen, and the Slop during her freshman season, makes her first start. She showed speed in the Susan's Girl. It's Kathleen O'Connell. Emma Ciala Jaramillo handling her 3-year-old debut. I liked that horse last year. Does she come back and run? There's a lot of guesswork there.
There is. I was going to ask you in terms of, and we don't know, is there a concern? Because I can speak on my opinion. I worry about her coming back and the real reality that she could have been a very speedy, precocious 2-year-old who was really good in those first couple of starts and seemed to tail off, and we have not seen her since the end of August.
Yeah, I mean, that was my thought. And, if you look at Kathleen's record, really not good with horses coming off extended layers like this. But I just think Kathleen might give this horse a race. But Lindsay's Lucky Lady, and the same thing with Reluctant Bride today, is making her first start since finishing a distant 4th. That was in the Grade 2 Devona Dale, going a mile here back in February. I found a stat, and I really had to search for this stat. It's just a wide open stat with this, course going from route to sprint on the dirt for the connections in here for Patrick B. and Cohn. 10 for 51, 20%, 43% in the money. And the return of investment is positive, $2.68. This is why I went 3 deep in this race. I could have gone 5 deep.
Yeah, I think the 4 Classy Beast is worth a look, too, who had run well for David Fox on the dirt at Oaklawn Park. Didn't run well in her allowance debut there, but ran fine on the turf last time out. I think she's a dangerous horse. We'll see how Reluctant Bride does. In theory, I like running 4th behind Tonal Shape and Spice is Nice in the Devona Dale. She didn't do much running in that race, and I do worry, for me anyway, if 6 is just going to be flat out too short for her on the dirt. We'll see, though. It's a really interesting 9th race this afternoon, a real sort of mishmash of horses, and it makes it pretty competitive, to say the least. Now, the 10th race does house, if you recall, my late pick 5 single, and Senzeoni, again, I just don't think could have wound up in a more modest-looking spot getting back on the turf. Don Alberto obviously runs horses here throughout the summertime, and, of course, on a 12-month span. You don't have Tom Albertrani down in Florida, but we do have Amador. This horse landed in just a great spot.
Yeah, faced considerably tougher in his 2 previous turf races. Is going back to the grass today. He responded to that drop down last time out with the 2nd for Amador. Takes over the training today, as you mentioned, with Hector Berrios in the saddle. The 7-horse, a gelded son of Rote, debuting for Juan Rizzo. What I liked about this horse was a string of solid workouts showing over. You got GP West. This barn is not known to, light up with first-time starter. He gets Lasix, and he's got a look in here, a little bit of a price horse in here. I wouldn't bet this horse unless I got a price.
All right, fair enough. He's got Marcos. I like the work Juan Rizzo does. He doesn't saddle a lot of horses. We know you're a big fan of these Santa Cruz homebred, Santa Cruz Ranch. Who was the, Stack.
Of course, Stack, yeah, but it's been a long time since Stack, so there are not many Stacks progeny.
There might be like a stack related, though, maybe on the female side of this. We might have to do a little investigative work.
I'm sure you're going to find that in there.
Yeah,
without a
no.
doubt.
Santa Cruz Ranch is A-OK. We'll see if their firster can make a dent in the nightcap as we take a little breather here and a quick timeout on Gulfstream today. We'll send it up to the man upstairs, Pete Aiello, for much, much more.